Hey, everybody, this is Josh McKinney, and I just want to welcome you to episode 122 of the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show. Today, we're going to talk about one of the toughest things for Jiu-Jitsu, in my opinion, the toughest thing in Jiu-Jitsu, and that is consistency. For so many of us, it is a battle to stay consistent, whether on the mat or off the mat. And a lot of times, it's hard to balance. We're going to kind of talk more about balance and stuff next week, but it's really hard for most of us to balance a good routine. We set these routines because other people have them, and we follow them for 6 days, 6 weeks, 6 months, and then I don't know why I went all sixes there. That was kind of demonic. But we follow them, let's say 7 days. Yeah, let's say we follow them for 7 days, 7 months, 7 years, however long, but eventually they get stale. We quit them. And a lot of times is really a simple reason that we quit them is it just wasn't the right routine for us. And that is more of what we're going to look at today, is how to start thinking about what the right routine is for you. And then make sure, even if the episode is terrible, make sure to skip to the very end of the content part of the episode, because I give 3 questions that you should be asking yourself pretty much each night that you train, each day that you train. And I really think that those 3 questions will immediately make you better at jiu-jitsu. Immediately increase your jiu-jitsu progression, your understanding, whatever you're trying to get better at in jiu-jitsu. I really think that 3 questions, and it will, if you put them consistently in your routine, it can change your jiu-jitsu. So that was a really hard, I guess it's not clickbait. What is it at the end? It was a teaser. Yeah, that was a really hard teaser. And so that's all I have for you. Let's get into this episode. The secret of your success is in your daily routine. Let's talk about that. This is a quote from John Maxwell. John Maxwell is a really big leadership guy. That's kind of who some of the best leaders in the world go to for leadership advice at this point. And John Maxwell is huge on routine. He is huge on finding your success through your routine. And that's what we're going to talk about today. The reason that we're going to talk about this, I think for most people, one of the hardest parts about jiu-jitsu is finding consistency. For most of us, just like in any part of life, we can start really strong and realize how great of an art jiu-jitsu is. But eventually, it fizzles away. Eventually, that feeling that you get, it starts to die off for a lot of us. And I think there are a few reasons that happens, and that's what we're going to dig into today. But first, before we get into that, since we're talking about success, I think that's a really good place to start, is what is success? For a lot of us in jiu-jitsu, success would be getting our black belt. Success would be winning a tournament. It would be winning a group of tournaments. It would be sometimes for a lot of us, success is beating a specific person at the gym. I can give an example of this without giving somebody's name or giving anybody's name. But I was talking to one of my buddies, and he was talking about how there was this guy who, when he started, at blue belt, this guy, or when he got to his blue belt, this guy was at the gym, and he would just beat my friend down every single round. And it wasn't even close. It was just bigger, stronger, faster. And my friend, I remember when we were blue belts, it was a big goal of his to beat this guy. Of course it was. He was a little bit of a mat bully, and it was the goal. And what kind of sucked is eventually that guy that was beating my friend, he actually quit jiu-jitsu. And so my friend wasn't able to beat him up. And it's a sad story, right? The bully needs to get beat down sometimes, right? Well, fast forward probably 4 or 5 years, the guy comes back to jiu-jitsu. And my friend has not stopped training. My friend has stayed consistent. He's actually really, really good at this point. And he was telling me that he got to do a round with this guy that not only used to beat him, but used to kind of embarrass him and beat him easily. And still, this guy is bigger and stronger. This guy is still able to dominate. And my buddy said, yeah, we rolled. And it was weird. It was like he wasn't even trying. It was so easy to beat him because the last 5 years, he hasn't been doing jiu-jitsu and I have. It wasn't even close. And he's like, and mentally, I was going into the round going, this is going to be a super tough round. This is going to be a really tough fight. And guess what happened? It wasn't. It was actually super easy. And the reason is simple. In jiu-jitsu, nothing trumps consistency. We say technique conquers all, but technique can be knowledge. Sometimes I know the right techniques, but if I'm not consistent in class, I'm not able to perform and execute those techniques at the right time. And it doesn't matter that I have all this knowledge. We have to be consistent to get good at jiu-jitsu. There is no other way around it. I have some thoughts. I have a lot of different ideas on like how we can look at consistency. So, normally for me, consistency is not something I struggle with. And for some of us that listen to this show, some of us don't struggle with consistency. They're, just more disciplined people, maybe just crazier people, to be honest, and kind of have that calloused mind. But sometimes I don't want to train. Sometimes I don't want to podcast. Sometimes I don't want to write emails. Sometimes I actually want absolutely nothing to do with jiu-jitsu. And that is when a routine matters. For example, I gave you guys at the beginning of the year, I said that my big goal for this podcast, it wasn't financial. It wasn't anything like that for the year. For me, for what I can do, what I can bring to the podcast is I wanted to put out 52 episodes. So right now you're listening, I'm traveling to ADCC trials. And then from here, I am going to go from Vegas and fly to Orlando and coach for a week at Pans. That is a ton of my time. That is going to be a ton of energy. It's going to be a blast. I'm going to get better at jiu-jitsu because of it, just being around the people that I'm going to get to be around. But here's the thing. I had to battle consistency. How am I going to put out 2 episodes while I'm out of town? I don't have anything recorded because the last 3, 4, I think we've done 3 interviews in a row. All those interviews I released because I was able to do them all in the same week. And then I was able to release them over the course of a month while I was writing the Simplifying Jiu-Jitsu ebook. But having that consistency of the podcast has honestly been the hardest thing that I've done this year. I've been gone like every weekend coaching for the past since January. And it's just, or coaching or training or teaching or something, right? And it's been a lot. Don't get me wrong. I'm not complaining in any way. This is like the life that I'm really excited to live, that I love to live. But it's still hard. It's still hard to be consistent. And for people that like want to quit their job one day, want to have a jiu-jitsu school one day, I know it seems like, well, then I'll be able to be consistent. Then I'll be able to be motivated. It doesn't honestly work like that. Consistency, motivation is a skill. It is not something that maybe some people are more apt to be consistent than others. But it is a skill. It is something you develop by doing it more and more. Every day that you wake up and step outside instead of looking at your phone first. Maybe that is what you're trying to get consistent with. You just want sunlight instead of phone light to start your day. Every day that you do that and you create it part of your habit, especially on days when it doesn't make as much sense to do, or when it sucks to do because it's too cold, it's too windy, whatever, it's too early. But you said you were going to step outside. You said you were going to get sunlight to start each day. And you start to do it. Every day that you do it, it becomes easier, especially when you do it successfully on the hard days. I'll give you another example. When or at least for what we're talking about now, I was at a tournament in Indianapolis, and one of my students, usually I don't go names, but I'll say name on this one because this was really fun. It's a really positive story about him. And so I will use his name on this one. But one of my students, Dylan, he got he was in the final of his division. It was actually the last match of the weekend. I probably coached 200 matches. I actually kept my voice pretty well up until this match. And, it's the last match of the weekend for me. We're going to probably leave right after this, unless, most likely we're going to leave after this. But he starts out the match, looks really good. Eventually, he gets swept. And while he is trying to defend the sweep, he gives up his back. And the guy goes crucifix to like reverse triangle, like triangle on the back while Dylan is on all fours. And then eventually turns it into like arm trap back take and gets a fully locked rear naked choke. And thing about Dylan is he's super tough. And I knew that. And, it was to a point, though, that it was locked. Normally, I would have probably stopped coaching at this point, mainly because it was so tight. I wouldn't have wanted him to get choked unconscious and me be coaching like, oh, you can get out. You can, you're sleeping. Right. And normally I would have not done that. I would have not kept coaching. But there was just something going on. There was just something special. He was in this choke and he was surviving, and it was tight. It was so tight that the coaches on the other team were actually going, it's finished. It's done. He's got it. That's it. And he was probably in this rear naked choke, full on locked for like 14, 15 seconds and just kept fighting the hands as hard as he could. But it was locked. It was chest puffed out, finished as any rear naked choke I've ever seen. And Dylan was like looking at me and another one of the coaches. And we just kept yelling, just push on the elbow, just push on the elbow. And then all of a sudden, my friend Junior, who's been on the podcast, he is my one Brazilian friend, my token Brazilian friend. He leans in and he says, Josh, his hands are weak. And then he leans over my shoulder and yells, Dylan, his hands are weak. His hands are weak. And Junior has this amazing ability of perception. And what he was telling us is the grip is breaking. And we started to see it probably a second or two after Junior. And we start losing our minds. We start going crazy. And he's able to fight out of the choke. And there's 2 minutes left. There's 2.5 minutes left. And at a point, they're getting reset, and Dylan is now on top. He's down 4 points and 3 advantages. Still, it's not looking good. You just got out of a choke, right? And I yelled at Dylan, look up. And he looks up at me, and I said, we've got 2.5 minutes. This is a new fight. And he just nodded, completely cold as ice, nodded once, passed the guy's guard, took his back and submitted him, and did it quickly, in all honesty. And, there was probably still 1.5 minutes left in the match when he was able to get the finish. But what you find is a lot of times that toughness of the choke, that survival of the choke, it came from getting choked a lot. It didn't come from a good place. Right? It came from getting choked a lot in surviving. Honestly, there is no way I would have thought that I could have gotten out of the choke. I don't think I've been rear naked choked that hard enough and escaped, right? That is what routine does for us too. When we have a consistent routine, not on the days that the sun comes out, not on the days where you wake up in the morning and your wife woke up an hour early and she made you coffee and it's right by your bedside table, and your dog didn't poop in the house and everything and the kids are at grandma's and the training is great. Those days, it's easy to have a good routine. And a lot of times we end up overdoing it on those days. I'll talk about that in a second. But for us, those days are important. You've got to stay consistent on the good days. But those days don't build up the callus. It's the next day. You worked maybe a little too much. You've pushed it a little too hard in practice, and now you're sore and you're tired. And your wife didn't wake up an hour early. Now you've got to make the coffee. Oh man, you stepped in dog poop right on your way in the hallway. This is a sucky day. Are you going to keep your routine? Those are the people that get good at jiu-jitsu. Those are the people that honestly get good at anything. I do some business coaching, and I'm usually pretty particular about who I coach. Don't get me wrong. If you're listening to this and you decided to offer me an obscene amount of money to help me coach your jiu-jitsu business, I would do that, right? I would be less picky. But a lot of times I only do it with people that I really, really trust and I really think will be successful. And the reason that I do that is because I think with successful people that get their black belt, that have to work really hard to get their black belt, they can apply those same routines, those same ideas to anything in life. And like I said, it's a skill. It's not as hard for them to change the routine to be about bringing in new members or about posting on Instagram for the gym or about something else. But that's why I always like to work with people that are tough black belts, because it doesn't matter where their business starts. It doesn't matter what city they go in. There is this level of toughness, this level of consistency that they have learned from jiu-jitsu that they apply to business. And usually that level of consistency goes like this. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. Hey, this one thing worked. I can do that all the time. And then you start to do it. And it starts to become successful. And eventually what should happen is it should become effortless. For example, let's say that one thing is, let's say it is your order of operation for a new student. Let's say you've always struggled with that. And you decide you're going to create this new order of operation for, okay, new student comes in, they get this welcome flyer, and it's got some information, and it's got a YouTube link to a video for our beginners, our brand new people. And so then they get to see you teach, and then they get to come to a class, and you have this sales routine that you take them through, and you sell them, and they sign up, and you got a member for life. Once you do it once you've created this, you should start doing it again. You should do it a second time. You should do it a third time. You should get better at it. You create that routine. You say, okay, what could I now do to consistently bring these people into my gym and then sign them up? You create a routine and then you practice it. Really, that's what we're doing. We're getting our repetition in. That is the most important thing in jiu-jitsu, is repetition. I talked about this when we were talking about drilling a little bit, but there's like these arguments on how much you should drill. And we'll get into this once I stop this rant. We'll move into kind of more specific ways to create a routine and specific things that you should have in your jiu-jitsu routine for your goals. But first, what we have to think about is, for some people, a floating routine is best. For some people, a rigid routine is best. For some people, drilling is best. For some people, maybe percentage drilling or positional sparring is best. A lot of times with these things, it's best to just break them down into the reason you're doing them, right? So like with drilling versus positional sparring, and there's all kinds of different ways to drill. There are different ways to positional spar or sparring live. What is up, guys? Josh here. Just wanted to tell you something that we have going on at simplifyingjujitsu.com really quick that you guys are going to be pumped about. So for this month only, the month of April, we are going to be doing 40% off of mastering the duck guard. So what the duck guard is for like 13 months in 2019 and 2020, and 2021 is actually longer than 13 months, to be totally honest. But when we recorded it, it was 13 months. I spent 13 months playing one grip from guard, and that is cross sleeve. And the idea was this: one of the hardest parts of jiu-jitsu, people don't realize this, one of the hardest battles of jiu-jitsu is the grip fighting, especially in the gi. And so what if I simplify grip fighting by learning everything from a specific grip? So then no matter what response they throw at me with that grip, I'm going to win, right? I have a response. I have a system from that grip. It's really important when you're creating a system in jiu-jitsu, is that it's easy to get to. And there is no easier guard system, especially advanced guard system, to get to than duck guard. And it's not even close. That cross sleeve position is so hard for people to deal with. There are videos of me online putting black belts in it, and they have no idea how to defend the position. And I'm giving you all that information for 40% off only for the month of April. If you go to simplifyingjujitsu.com/quack, you can get your copy of Mastering the Duck Guard for 40% off. Back to the show. People get better training differently. Some people, for example, me and one of my purple belts were talking, and he's super good. He got third at Blue Belt Worlds last year and has been really consistent, has really been getting better. And we were talking about it, and he said, 2 weeks ago was the first time that I ever repetitively drilled anything. And for a lot of people, they would say that that's crazy. They'll go, no, you that's the only way to get good, is to repetitively drill the same moves over and over. That's the only way to get good. But this student was able to get good through a lot more positional sparring and a lot more live rounds. Why is that? It's because people get good differently. But one thing that is consistent, that every single jiu-jitsu person in the world needs to get good, is repetition. Whether that is a drill, whether that is a positional spar, whether that is what I would call live drilling, where maybe I'm doing knee cuts and I'm doing them against one of my wider blue belts, and I know consistently, like, I'm going to be able to hit this knee cut a lot. And so I hit the knee cut, and then I let them fight out of side control. I make them work. And then as soon as we get back into guard, I hit the knee cut, and I do it over and over, right? All I'm doing is getting repetition. The only way to get really, really good at something is to do it a lot of times. That is like the whole 10,000 hours idea. I think it's a cool idea. Obviously, it's going to be different depending on what you're going to try to learn, right? What you're trying to master. With jiu-jitsu, maybe it is 10,000 hours that you need. Maybe it's more. The biggest thing, though, during those 10,000 hours, you need repetition. Whether that is just from live rolling, whether you just do the same things over and over again from live rolling. If you listen to my episode with Sean Williams, I think that's the most listened to interview that I have on the show. And with Sean, at the very beginning of the episode, he talks about Roger Gracie and his training. And they don't talk about drilling. They talk about Roger Gracie doing the same moves in live training over and over and over again, but doing them with less strength and less explosiveness over and over and over again. And eventually, Roger got so good at those moves that he was able to beat anybody. Look at what he beat Buchecha with when he beat Buchecha, when he was too old, when he was retired, and Buchecha was a hot commodity. He was the best. I mean, not that he probably still isn't the best in the gi right now. He probably could still win worlds in the gi right now, but he was the best against Roger. And Roger, Roger beat him, and he beat him with like closed guard. You know, he beat him with a simple back take. He beat him with a simple back choke. But he probably beat him because he had done those things 50,000 times. He probably beat him because he had just been there more. That's really what we're trying to do in jiu-jitsu. So much of jiu-jitsu, even class, is just repetition, right? We have to do classes over and over and over. If you go to a gym that likes to focus more on stuff, you may focus for a week, 6 weeks, 6 months on one thing. And that consistency, that focus always helps everybody at the gym. When I focus on side control, like defense, for let's say like 6 weeks, every time I do it, and we really just zone in on like, hey, we're not going to get submitted. We maybe can't escape everything, but we're not going to get submitted from side control, and we're not going to let them get to mount. And I really show what there is, and we show it over and over again, and we positional spar it, we drill it, we spar it from live over and over. Always this happens. I will be going with white and blue belts at the end of the 6 weeks, and I will be getting frustrated because I can't finish them from side control. And I'm like, okay, this is getting stupid. I am gonna, I need to switch to a back take or something, because these guys, their side control defense is good. In 6 weeks, their side control defense is good enough to at least defend from a good black belt trying to finish them. That only comes with repetition. We just focused the repetition. The repetition just happened more in that 6 weeks for those white belts than it normally happens for most people over the course of their entire black belt. You ever go with a lot of any black belt listening? A lot of black belts suck at bad positions. You should not suck at bad positions if you are a black belt. If you are good at jiu-jitsu, supposed to be good at jiu-jitsu, I think that this is like one of the very few absolutes that I really believe when it comes to like what you should know. I really think that black belts that can't defend themselves from bad positions are doing a disservice to themselves and their students. One, if you don't know how to defend a position, I don't think you can know how to efficiently attack it, right? If you don't know the best way to defend, how do you know how to counter how they're defending, right? Maybe you just do it by feel because you've done it so long. That can happen. But what happens if you're on top in side control and you're just going with a big, strong white belt, and they just do that bridge and roll where you go from top side control to bottom side control, and you can't escape, and you get submitted by them even? Not that getting submitted by a white belt is a big deal at all, but you shouldn't be getting submitted by a white belt because you have this huge gap in knowledge, right? And for so many people, bad positions, leg lock defense, there are just these insane gaps in knowledge. My dad and I talk about it. My dad's 60. He'll go with guys that are supposed to be good, and they'll be, he's 60. They're able to beat him up in all these positions. And then we'll do a round starting from side control or mount. And one, he escapes from them almost immediately. And then two, when he gets on top, he usually submits them. That shouldn't happen. You should be able to defend bad position. That's kind of, this whole episode's been a tangent, but that happens sometimes, right? Let's move on let's look at some actual in the gym, what I would call micro routines. I really just talked about some importance of routines and given some examples. I'll give you a little more of some rigid examples of some macro routines first, and then we'll move to the micro, which is like how to look at a specific class or something like that. So for macro, what we do, macro obviously means big, right? What is my weekly routine? What is my monthly routine? What is my yearly routine? And then it should break down to my daily routine, right? My daily routine should probably affect or be very close to what my weekly routine is, right? Like that is what makes it a routine. So, for your routine, though, you have to start out with the individual. I can't say this is the routine I follow. You guys should do it too, because you'll be like, well, I have like a 9-to-5 job, or I don't get to train as much, or physically I can't train as much as you do. So it has to be for the individual, and it should start with the individual's goal. Like we started out, the secret to your success is in your daily routine. All of us want success. All of us want success. We should all find success in jiu-jitsu some way. That should be the goal. A lot of times we don't define it and it becomes very hard. But a simple definition of success in jiu-jitsu is learning how to properly defend yourself. Losing weight, right? That would be a big goal. That would be a big thing that a lot of people want to do. When we are looking at success, we have to first start with a goal, right? So often our routine sucks because there's nowhere we're trying to get to. We're trying to create a routine because Tim Ferriss says that we should. And that's not a good reason to have a routine. You're going to give up on that routine. As soon as it starts to feel bad, as soon as you start to get exhausted with it, if you are not chasing something bigger, your routine is going to most likely fail. Don't get me wrong. There are some human beings that can just keep the same routine, even if it is taking them in all kinds of different directions. Some people can do that. But most of us can't. So you look at what your big goal is. So let's say your big goal, for me, let's say my big goal is to become a jiu-jitsu world champion. And that is my big goal. And so I'm going to create a routine that reflects that. First off on my routine, I'm going to say, what do I need to become to get there? Right? Obviously, I'm not good enough to be one yet. If I was good enough, I would be one, right? I'm not good enough to be one yet. And so maybe I start to ask myself questions. Hey, what were some things that went wrong last year or 2 years ago or 3 years ago? Now that I've been a black belt for a while, what are some things that went wrong in the lead up? What could I fix there? Okay, I had some injuries. How could I fix those injuries? Well, I could start doing yoga. I don't have to start doing yoga every single day, but I've looked at the injuries that I have and flexibility, adding some flexibility back because I've lost some flexibility. Adding flexibility back seems to be a really big thing that I could do. And this is an experiment too, right? So I add it to my routine. Maybe it starts with once a week yoga. Maybe it starts with once a week yoga on YouTube. Maybe I'm the type of person that feels better doing twice, 3 times, 4 times a week, but I start with just trying. And this is like, we talked about floating routines. And this is kind of like the only way that I can live right now is through a floating routine. I think when it gets warm, like in the summer, I'll be able to have a more consistent, just weekly routine. But how the floating routine works is I have a list of things that I like to do in a week. I have a list of things I like to do each day, and I check them off. I make sure that I do them each day. So, for example, my daily routine stuff each day is like wake up in the morning. I was talking about going outside. I've been doing that lately. I've really found a lot of help from that. First thing in the morning, not looking at your phone, just waking up and walking outside. And it's still cold where I live. It's still 30 degrees when I walk outside in my bathrobe. But like first 5 minutes of the day, I just spend outside. And mentally, it's been really helpful for me. I noticed for me in the lead up to Worlds, I got really tired. I got I just do so much stuff. And so part of my routine was, what could I do to feel better? So maybe not yoga. And that's where like going outside came from. Or something else I might say is specifically, here are some positions that I should have worked, that I should be better at. Or I found some positions that I need to work for the next 6 months to get good enough to be able to, at least in my mind, because you never know, but to get good enough to where I think I could win Worlds. And I'm specific about those positions, right? But all of those little things, all those little routines came from my big goal. Came from my big goal, right? You can't just set a big goal and then just see, right? You need some bit of consistency because you know that everyone else is training hard. You know everyone else can run on the hamster wheel, right? Like a lot of the people that I'm competing against at Worlds, they are just super, super, super tough, super athletic people that learn some jiu-jitsu, right? That get on the mat a lot. They don't necessarily always have to have the deepest understanding of jiu-jitsu, but they've created a really strong routine. They've stayed consistent over the course of 8, 10, 12 years. They're on the right team and their routine gets them success. So I have to look at that too. I say, okay, so some of these guys are more athletic than me, and flexibility and going out in the sun isn't enough. So I need to add more consistent lifting, or I need to change weight classes, or I need to do whatever, right? But then let's say I decided to change weight classes. Well, my routine now needs to reflect that. And it is going to be, I'm going to have to start dieting. I'm going to have to start looking at losing weight. That is how you set a routine. Is you start with your big picture, you start with your big goal, you start with where you want to be, and then you make small goals and you turn them into your daily routine, and you're able to have so much success. And a daily routine we could call like micro and not macro, but I really think of my daily routine as part of the macro, is the most important part of the macro. Really, the present is the only time that you ever have application, right? The future we plan, the past we reflect on, but the present is when we actually are in our routine. Right now, me recording is part of a routine. Because I knew, I usually have 2 days that I will record, and there will be Monday or Wednesday, and then occasionally on Thursday. But I know that for this week, to get the two whatever you call these podcasts, these 2 episodes out, I've got to start my routine on Monday. I'm going to have to do it again on Wednesday, right? Because I have to do 2 episodes. That starts with my routine, right? It started as soon as I woke up in the morning, kept my consistent routine, started with outside, right to yoga, right to drinking coffee, take a shower, listen to my few songs I like to listen to right before my podcast, and then I hit record. That's what my morning routine was. And we are now in the middle of it, right? What you'll find is once you get done with these things, though, a lot of times, and this is where my mind is now, this is just how my mind works. I'm assuming is how a lot of people's minds who obsess about jiu-jitsu work. So now I've had a successful day. I've done all that in the first few hours, 3 hours of my day. And I'll still have editing to do and stuff today. But after that, I will not have anything to do until 6 p.m. when I teach. And so what I will probably do is I'll go, okay, so the house needs cleaned. I need to do all these other things that are on my floating routine. And then I start to do them. The problem occurs when I wake up at 7, I start recording at 8:30 and work on my podcast. And then I go and clean my house. And then I go for a bike ride. And then I go and, oh man, I could do another podcast. And then I write like 4 or 5 emails. And then by the time I get to 6 p.m. class, I am so mentally fatigued. I am so checked out that I don't have good training, which for me is one of the most important things, right? For you listening to this episode, if you're listening to an episode on consistency in jiu-jitsu, I assume it's mat time. It is training for most of us. Some of us, it isn't. Some of us, it is the outside part of jiu-jitsu. It is the diet. It is the physical routine. But for most of us, it's just making sure that we get on the mat. And the most important way to consistently get on the mat, and this is 100% my belief, could be wrong, but I think that the most important way to find consistency and keep it is to just keep getting good. We get addicted to success really quickly. We get addicted to things that are good for us or things that make us feel good very, very quickly. Ask anyone who's ever tried a drug. You can get addicted to a drug very, very quickly. You can get addicted to something very quickly, right? Especially when it has this positive feedback, whether it's immediate or whether it takes a while. When it has this positive feedback, we can just jump on it and say, this is great. I want to keep doing it. The problem for a lot of us arises in jiu-jitsu when we go 3 or 4 years and we feel like we have not gotten any better. And for a lot of people, I would say that it isn't true. For a lot of people, you have gotten better. The problem usually occurs when everybody else is getting better faster than you. I don't know who the quote came from, but my cousin always says it. And it is like that the best way to ruin something beautiful is to compare it to something else. You cannot compare your jiu-jitsu progression to other people. You have to compare it to yourself. And I'm going to give you guys a really simple way to look at that, how to look at your jiu-jitsu progression just on a daily basis. And I've kind of stole parts of this from Sean Williams, but this is kind of my own thing also. And these are just 3 questions to ask yourself in, I guess, the hour and 15 minutes of an hour-long class. Okay. So it's just kind of like mental prep before the class starts. You do your entire class, and then a few thoughts on what you should be thinking about after class. And so the first question, and like I said, these are just 3 questions. They're super simple. The first question is, where am I? When I pull into the gym pretty much every night, I sit in my car for like 30 seconds. Even sometimes it's 10 seconds, but it is always on purpose. There's always an intentional thought. Where am I? And that doesn't just mean, where am I? Am I at the gym? I know I'm at the gym. Where am I physically? How am I feeling? Man, my body doesn't hurt right now. Or maybe my shoulder is really hurting right now. I need to keep that in mind. I need to make sure that I am feeling good in my shoulder, right? Or mentally, where am I? Sometimes we show up to the gym and we are so mentally done. That is the most successful thing that we are going to do throughout the day. We're not going to have any success at the gym. We're going to probably get beat up. But just knowing that, going in and saying, okay, I am here and I am tired and I don't, and I am arguing with somebody, or there's this business problem, or there is something else going on and it's really hard. That's where I'm at. Sometimes there's nothing you can do about it. Your day is sucked, but you made it. You kept your consistency. You kept your routine. And so now you've done like a physical and mental checklist. And you can make this even more of a checklist. You can add a cup of coffee to this. You can add a few exercises to this first question, right? Where am I mentally? I'm going to do my 5 push-ups, my 5 squats, my 5 jumping jacks, my 20 push-ups, my whatever, right? My burpees, my stretches, whatever. But it's consistent, right? This is my routine. This is something my dad taught me years ago, was creating certain things. You really, they call them like anchors, but we creating anchors to be ready to train, to be ready to do jiu-jitsu. It was for us, it was to be ready to lift weights. And he was really good at showing me, like, this is how we know, this is how our body knows that it's about time to work. And what's funny is the other day we were drilling and we showed up to the gym. We're both kind of tired and like, man, we should listen to something good. And so I started playing Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction, the album. And it starts playing. And I just said, hey, do you remember when I was like 7 years old and you taught me how to lift weights? And because we had a garage that was all kinds of weight training equipment, and he taught me how to lift weights. And what we would do is when we were younger, my mom didn't like us listening to Guns N' Roses and things of that nature. And so my dad would be like, he would never say, don't tell mom. But I knew that it wouldn't be the best idea to tell mom about Appetite for Destruction. But we would listen to Welcome to the Jungle and we would lift weights. And still to this day, like I said, we were getting ready to drill. And I said, do you remember that? And he just laughed. He's like, I don't really remember. He's like, I remember listening to it and lifting, but he's like, I don't remember it being this significant thing. And to me, it was, just because you're a kid. And so what I did was I said, okay, we should listen to Appetite for Destruction while we're drilling. And we did. We turned it on and we just started drilling over and over and over and over. And we were doing like each person would get a song. And that was what they were doing for the drilling. It was one of like the best drilling sessions that I've had in maybe ever. And I think back to it and I'm like, man, we really did. I mean, this would have been at this point 15 years ago. We really did condition our bodies and our minds to be ready to work when we hear Welcome to the Jungle. Both of us have. And this is 15 years ago. And I was a child. Still, though, I got a great training session because I was in the right mental state, whether it was a physical thing that put me there or a mental thing. Some people we all have routines. Some people it's your pre-workout, but people have like these consistent things that they do. And whether you agree with them or not, whether it's smacking yourself in the face, if you just do the same thing over and over every single night before you train, you get this great effect or consistency that no one else seems to get. And I think that these three questions that we're covering are really good. So the first one is, where am I physically and mentally? Where am I? Okay. So now that I have this and I can kind of say, okay, I know where I am. And then I say, what am I here to do? Why am I here? Right? What am I here to accomplish? What am I here to get tonight? What am I here to give? Sometimes I show up to training and I know, okay, I am beat down physically. I have zero focus. There's nothing for me right now. I have no tournaments coming up, but maybe I'm here to just be a good training partner. My coach is getting ready and he's at the training session. So I'm going to help him get ready to compete. What does he need? Sometimes that is my best role. Sometimes I'm getting ready to compete and I say to myself, what am I here to do? And I'm like, I am here to hit 25 arm bars. Sometimes it's super specific from mount on the left arm, right? Sometimes it's super specific. And that is your focus. And you go after that. That's how you approach your class. Sometimes I am so beat down that I'm just here because I know I love jiu-jitsu and it is good for me. And so then I'm here to enjoy class. There is nothing wrong with going into a jiu-jitsu session and saying, hey, I couldn't care less if I get better today. I am just so thankful to be on the mats and I'm happy to be with my friends. And a lot of times that attitude gets you better too. Because the only time that attitude really matters is when we've been putting a lot of pressure on ourselves, when we've been making it hard on ourselves. And sometimes that's not the best way to enjoy jiu-jitsu. Remember, like, as much as success keeps us coming back, it's the fun of it that keeps us coming back. It's the enjoyment that we get from success in jiu-jitsu that keeps us coming back. And so sometimes I didn't mention this, but with the, what am I here to do? This should reflect from the first question, where am I at? Right? If physically I am beat down and then my what am I here to do is go 110%, it's probably not a good idea. That's why we do that physical and mental check on our bodies first, right? It's just like with a race car. You check first, hey, is everything in working order? And if it's not, you try to make your tweaks. If it is, then you can go, right? And so that is going to be really important, is what am I here to do? Being really smart about what you're there to do. And then you take your class, whether that is just a training session, whatever it is, you are engaged in it, you enjoy it, you learn whatever you are there to do, you try to accomplish. And then when you leave, whether some people like to I don't know if it's cool at your gym or not, but some people like to stretch on the mat after. Some people like to sit and drill after. Some people like to leave immediately. It just depends on who you are. But at some point, you should then ask yourself the third question. After your training session, did I get what I came for? So the first question is, where am I, both physically and mentally? The second question is, what am I here to do? And the third question after class is, did I get what I came for? Why? Why not? If you can answer those questions, the next day, when you go into your, where am I physically and mentally? Obviously, that is going to be dependent on the day. But then when you say, what am I here to do? Let's say you didn't accomplish your goal the night before. So maybe your goal was to get 25 arm bars and you got one. Well, I guess my new goal is to get 24 arm bars, right? I need to get better at that position anyway. And what you'll find is, the first night, maybe you get one. The second night, you get one. The third night, you get one. And then all of a sudden, the fourth, fifth night, you get like 4 or 5. It's just because you had that focus and you kept asking yourself, did I get what I came for? Because if you're not in it hitting arm bars, there's probably a reason. Sometimes the reason is it was painfully obvious that that was all you were going for, and everybody started defending. So then maybe you have to say, well, I have to do something different now. Everyone is just hugging themselves trying to defend my arm bars. So maybe you try that. Maybe you say, maybe I just suck at the arm bar. I just need to get better at it. So you drill it a little more. You focus on it a little bit differently. You watch some different videos. But that question, we talk about it on like the drive home. Did I get what I came for? It's one of the most important questions to constantly ask yourself in jiu-jitsu. And so that is what I'm going to leave you guys with on this episode, are those three questions. Why am I here? Or where am I? What am I here to do? And did I get what I came for? You guys start to ask yourself those three questions on a consistent basis. Add no other part of routine, no morning routine, no night routine, nothing else. Those three questions. And they will absolutely change your jiu-jitsu progression because you're being intentional, because you are consciously making an effort to say, this is where I'm at. This is where I want to be. I'm finding myself getting 1% of the way there or 0.5% of the way there or whatever. But being intentional, just being engaged, being efficient with your time is one of the most important things in jiu-jitsu, and it is how you get your routine. And so I guess I'll leave you guys with this. If you are, I know this was kind of an abstract episode. I didn't even follow my notes. I had like notes that I wrote, and they were so out of left field that I was like, I'll just wing it. But big thing to finish with when it comes to routine, big thing to think about is just doing it. So often our routine doesn't feel good. But if it is good for us, if it is the right routine, sometimes you have the wrong routine and you have to make a change. You have to say, this is too much. I wake up too early to train the way that I do. I don't get enough sleep. I need to add sleep to my routine, right? Maybe you do need to tweak your routine. We're going to talk about rest and recovery next week. So like anything that I didn't touch on is probably going to be touched on next week because I think routine and rest and recovery, I want to do all three at the same time, but it just would have been too much. And so we're going to talk about like rest and recovery as a routine and how much rest and recovery do you need to get good at jiu-jitsu, to train consistently. That's what we're going to look at next week. But for right now, finish with this. Just do it. That is the secret to a routine, is finding something that you can consistently do and doing it and doing it and doing it. Remember, the goal is repetition, whether you're getting those repetitions from whatever, from live, from drilling, from maybe those repetitions aren't jiu-jitsu. Maybe they are your morning routine. Just get repetition. Just do it and do it a lot. Do it over and over. That is the black belt mentality. And if you want to be a black belt one day, that is the mentality you have to adopt. Hey, if to get good at this, I'm going to have to do it a lot. And that's what I'll leave you guys with. Hope you guys like this one. And that is the episode. Thank you guys for checking this one out. I hope the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show is part of your weekly routine at this point. I'm really trying to keep the episodes out consistently on Thursdays, so it can be. I know that if you have a podcast that you listen to and like on Thursdays, you listen to it every Thursday, and then it doesn't come out on a Thursday, you're like, Josh, you betrayed me. Why would you do that to me? And so I'm trying not to do that to you. I'm trying to get it consistent. Once we feel really good about the consistency of Thursdays, I'm going to add back Suckless Saturday because I miss doing those episodes. They're really fun for me to do because they're so short and quick. But I need to make sure that I can stay consistent, keep my good routine on our Thursdays for right now. I hope you guys like this one. Be sure to check out this month. Be sure to check out the Duck Guard. This is definitely the best instructional I've ever made. It's like not even a doubt. It's just really, really simple, a really simple way to look at really complex technique and really complex ideas. And I think that it is just done in a way that, I think it's done in a way that people would just be shocked. You know, it's just very different. And so be sure to check that out. It is way, way, way cheaper than it should be. And I think you guys will really enjoy it. But that's all I have for you guys today. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Hope you can create a great routine. Hope to see you back next week, when we talk about recovery, when we talk about rest. And most importantly, I hope today's episode helps you guys suck just a little bit less at jiu-jitsu. Have a great day, guys.